Hey, Robert Phoenix here. Welcome to the Sunday night stream here live on YouTube, and we'll play with some astrology and get into what's happening in the inner and the outer world, cosmic interior and exterior. As I speak to you tonight, over in France, Emmanuel Macron
Hey,
is.
Robert Phoenix here. Welcome to the Sunday night stream here live on YouTube. Play with some astrology and get into what's happening
the YouTube thing up here. Let me mute that. There we go. That way I don't have to hear myself. I miss actually being seen on this thing. But we've evolved, and it is the way it is. So Emmanuel Macron has claimed victory tonight in the French election, the big French election that he has fought tooth and nail with Marine Le Pen, and it wasn't even really close. You know, it's really hard to get a sense as to what's really going on in elections in general, let alone a French election. It's just kind of crazy. They have an election 2 weeks ago, and they have another election. And let me see if I can give you a nice little image of Mr. Emmanuel Macron, who's going to be the new Prime Minister of France. And he's been accused of being basically a shill for the international banking community, also known as the House of Rothschild. And I have his chart, and we can look at his chart, and I can tell you why he won, pretty much, other than the fact that Marine Le Pen was never going to win. And she was probably the most, in some ways, popular candidate as it related to the French, who had some semblance of history and wanted to return to a pre-EU France. But she's not, Marine Le Pen is not a socialist, and a lot of French are still quite philosophically social. Now, again, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, and I don't know how they run their elections, because here in this country, obviously, we've had serious challenges, starting really with the election of George Herbert Walker Bush. Actually, George W. Bush, George Walker Bush, and the Chads, and everybody knows that story. And the next election against Kerry was thrown because Kerry was a Skull and Bones member, and he was going to lose, and he knew he was going to lose, and that's why he was drafted. Then, of course, we had Obama, who was a shoo-in against the fake maverick known as McCain and his MK Ultra Beta Kitten puppet, Sarah Palin. So the next election, there was a really good chance that Obama would lose. And they ran Mitt Romney, who's as stiff as a board, and he went for some kind of middle-of-the-road kind of, bullshit. And there are people that think that Romney won. And I think there's probably a good chance that he won. And of course we have our last election. Let me give you Macron's chart so that we can look at this. And I can give you a sense here as to why he won and why Marine Le Pen did not win. And so let's bring up Mr. Macron's chart. There you go. Dave. Here we go. Check this out. We're going to look at a couple different charts tonight, and I think you're going to have a fun night here. We're going to focus mainly on people that are born under the sign of Taurus and try to give you a sense as to why things are in their chart and how things happen and why they happened. And I think you'll try to look for some really interesting women, but I was having a hard time. I found Donald Trump's mother's chart. It's not that interesting. Okay, so here's Macron's. Let's just put it right here. This is his chart. All right, I'm going to tell you why he won. And I'll tell you why Le Pen did not win, other than the fact that they might have had many people who were not from France who did not want to be sent back to their country voting against Le Pen. I think it's a possibility. So let's check out Mr. Macron's chart. 29 degrees Sagittarius, born at 12/21, with Venus in Sagittarius and Neptune in Sagittarius, and he's got a Mercury Sun conjunction at the 29th degree of Sagittarius. Quite interesting. Now, he was busted just before the election. 4chan went after him and dumped a bunch of leaks. There were people on 4chan, there were hackers, and they leaked a whole lot of material about this guy. From the fact that he's connected to, I think it's his manager, if I'm not mistaken. We'll find out. We'll get into the specifics, and buying drugs and Bitcoin, and there's all kinds of really sordid stuff with Emmanuel Macron. He married his teacher. His teacher seduced him when he was young. So his teacher is older than he is, significantly older. But let's look at the chart. Now, Saturn is right there, very close to his Venus, and that's right there at the cusp of the 10th and the 11th house. It's just over the 10th house cusp and then the 11th. And, you know, I think a case could be made that Saturn on Venus in the 11th, you know, if you're dealing with the collective and if you're dealing with sort of public opinion, that it might not necessarily be a bad thing. But let's just look at the top of the chart. Let's go to where Libra is, and you'll see that there is Pluto in Libra. So he's a Gen Xer. And then there's the true node in Libra. Where's transiting Venus? Transiting Venus is at 13, sorry, transiting Jupiter. Transiting Jupiter is at 13 degrees conjunct this true node. How about that? Now, what's really interesting is that Marine Le Pen's south node is in Libra. So they have opposing nodes. Marine Le Pen's true node is in the sign of Aries, and her true node is on the ascendant. So when I saw Jupiter on her ascendant, I thought, well, this is interesting. I think she could win. But then I saw it on her south node, and it's like, ooh, this is not good. And so here we have really the Jupiter effect on two very different nodes. And Macron is clearly the recipient, from an astrological perspective, of the transit of Jupiter on the true node, which is very fortuitous. Now, here we have the 8th house, and Pluto and the true node are hidden and tucked away in the 8th house, so there are things happening behind the scenes. And the difference between, say, the 12th house and the 8th house is, I think it's fairly distinct. I think it's fairly distinct. When you get into the 8th house, the energy tends to be diffuse, amorphous, foggy. Sometimes it can be quite deep and profound, and it can be very mystical at times. And at other times, it could be just incredibly sort of, you know, vague, and again, this whole notion of just mist and fog and not being able to see things clearly. People can't be seen clearly. A lot of times they'll do things that are sort of behind the back of other people, and there's a lot of mystery with the 12th house. But the 8th house is more concerted. In the 8th house, we get into the realm of Scorpio and the underworld, and we're dealing directly with issues around power. Sexual power, monetary power because we're dealing with other people's resources, psychic power, occult power, sex magic, black magic, the Dark Knight, the descent into the underworld. So it's a very powerful house. But there tends to be more, how shall we say, scheming and planning with the 8th house. Because you're dealing with power and resources. We don't think about the 12th house as power. We think about the 12th house in some ways as a lack of power to some degree. And if you're going to find power in the 12th house, it is spiritual power, make no mistake about it. So here he has Pluto, and he's got Jupiter right next to his Pluto. That's intense, that's powerful. And then Jupiter on his true node. So to me, this was sort of the calling card of his moment in time and being elected. Now, Mercury's in the shadow, so it's not retrograde. Venus has gone direct, and we look at this. We look at the moon. Where am I? Hold on. Let me get back to it. When we look at the moon is currently at 16 degrees Libra. So he's got transiting moon, which is waxing and not waning, and it's going to be right there on his natal Pluto. It is right there right now. So this guy is really the recipient of some very beneficent astrological timing. Extremely beneficent. He's got Saturn in Virgo at 0 degrees, and guess where the true node is? It's right there. Transiting true node is right on his Saturn, and it is what's that? His 7th house. So he has all the astrological markers for victory, and I'm not surprised that he won. I didn't look at his chart until tonight, but I did look at Marine Le Pen's chart 2 weeks ago, and I saw that Jupiter on her south node was problematic. It was Here's what I think. I think that if we look at this in the weeks to come, the days and the weeks to come, we'll find that people were not allowed to vote for Marine Le Pen. And I don't know how that's going to manifest. But it's going to come out that something is wrong about the election. Because I don't necessarily, look, I think that this guy could have won, especially if the population, which has become far less French than at any point in time in history, if they were activated, like waves of sleeper cells voting for Macron, clearly it's easy to do. And then you throw in the French Socialist Guard, and it could add up to very big numbers. But I'm going to go on record, I'm going to say something's not right about the election. And it's going to be interesting to see what Marine Le Pen will do. Now, it's been rumored that she will win in 2022. I just saw that on the internet. I don't know how they got that. But this is this guy's day. Clearly, from an astrological perspective, he carried the day. And even Sun conjunct Moon, correct? He's got Moon at, what is that, 14 degrees? And where do we have the Sun? Sun's at 17. So when the election went off, it was probably about a 5-degree separation. And as the night moves on, the Moon will move closer to his Sun. So he had a lot of very strong factors. Sun on Moon, true node on Saturn, transiting Jupiter on his natal true node and Pluto, and there you go. There's your winner of the French election, Emmanuel Macron. Do you want to know what he did? So I want to read you some of the stuff here that came out from the dump, Macron Internal Communications. And by the way, the French were ordered not to report this stuff in the media. They were ordered not to talk about it on the news. So let's see, we have, insider trading. There's lots of insider trading with Macron and Morgan Stanley. The leaks include very sensitive information on total numbers of military police assets that Macron should not have had access to. So he's got A lot of this stuff is in French, so it's had to be translated. There's communications. There's an email from the Rothschilds, and people knew that he was connected to the Rothschilds. And then there's a drug deal. So one of Macron's staffers used Bitcoin in order to order some quasi-legal drug popular gay clubs called 3-methyl-methacathinone from the darknet market. He received it in a government building. Now, again, the whole thing with his wife is that it's claimed that she is a beard, and that Macron is actually gay. I mean, I don't care if somebody's gay, but if you're going to be gay, just like run. Run as a gay person. Just get out there and wear a rainbow tie. Who cares? It's worse if you've got a beard, and it's utterly deceitful. So there's another tweet here from Deplorable Media. Looks like Macron asked his campaign manager to buy cocaine. The whole drug thing, I'm going to tell you right now, it is a white rabbit. At this point, people don't give a shit about drugs. I'm sorry to say that. They don't. It's like, oh, cocaine, good. I've used it. Who cares, right? I mean, I think we're at a point now where the gotcha stuff, Obama did this. He was very smart about it. He leaked early on that he had used cocaine. He got out in front of it, and he doesn't use it anymore. Right? So we've gotten to this point now where it doesn't really matter. I mean, you'd have to. Look at what happened with Hillary Clinton. I mean, clearly she lost, but with all the WikiLeaks stuff, I think contributed to the loss. And who cares? It's out there. How else are we going to find out about this stuff? Because the mainstream media does not report on it, and we know that. So Macron is going to be the new Prime Minister of France, and they'll make all the bankers and all the people who are so pro-EU, make them very happy. But this is not done yet. It's not done yet. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Let me just look at Macron's chart just a little bit more, and let's see what we have here that could go south for Mr. Macron. What do we got? Well, where's Neptune? Well, it's not quite there yet, but he'll have a Neptune square. Neptune square. That's going to be in about 2 years, and I would not be surprised if his quote-unquote power is drained away from him at that point in time. Pluto, transiting Pluto's in his 12th house. Again, that's hidden, tucked away, deep Plutonian forces operating behind the scenes. This is what's driving a lot of his chart, is that transiting Pluto in the 12th house. And let's see, he's got Jupiter, 11, Leo, and then that 0, Virgo. Transiting Saturn is going to be going into his transiting Saturn going into his 12th house will not be easy, because he's going to have a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in his 12th house. And that's going to happen in 2020. So if he's around in 2020, that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the 12th house could be fatal. Just saying. Just saying. He's got Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, and his part of fortune is in Gemini, and that's over there in the 4th house, just before the 5th house cusp. So congratulations, France. You have a new prime minister, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the elections and how it all unfolds in terms of the postscript. But it's that Jupiter on the true node and true node on a Saturn. This was the guy's time. So here we go. We're going to take this out. We're going to talk about kind of where we are today with astrology. I'm going to get rid of him. Clever lad. Let's see. Where's my image? Where am I? Where did I go? You see me? Let's bring me back up there. Let's bring me back up there. It's good to at least look at something, don't you think? There we go. There we go. There I am. And look, we hit the mark, 10 o'clock tonight. Normally I will do this at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, but I got back late and was working on putting together a lot of stuff for the show for your benefit. So let's get into where the stars are today. We have the Sun at 17 Taurus, which puts it in the second decan, and that puts it in the Virgo decan. Very useful. I did my Virgo decan, Sun and Taurus deed for the day today, by the way. People were having this Taurus moment. I was driving back down to my apartment, going down the hill, and I saw this guy and this gal, and they were struggling. They had first I thought they had an air mattress and they were going to the pool. Then I looked and it wasn't an air mattress, it was a box spring. And they were having a hard time. So I looked at them and I said, hey, where are you going with that? Oh, we're just going to take it up to the trash. And so I'm going to throw it in the back. I'll drive it up there for you. So they threw it in the back and they walked up there and I met them and they unloaded the poor old box spring. Poor old box spring. So that was my my second decan Taurus Virgo moment of the day. We've got I love the Sun in Taurus. It's a great time. I mean, it's the springtime. You know, I mean, feel it, get into it. We had beautiful skies today, and of course, they started to crap all over them at about 1 p.m. But there's such great energy in the air. There's such wonderful Earth energy in the air at this time of year. And I know some of you folks up in the northern part of the country are still getting hit with snow and cold and all that crap. Hang in there. The weather's going to change. And it'll probably change again and again and again because this is what's happening these days. But it'll change and you'll eventually morph into your summer pattern, we hope. But it was beautiful today, and there are parts of the world that are in the northern hemisphere experiencing spring. Our folks and friends down in the southern hemisphere, I hope your fall is going well and you're experiencing all the fruits of that season for yourselves. One of the things that we can do with the Sun in Taurus is we can really look at things like our body. This is a good time of year to deal with your body. And he raises his right hand as I've been working on my back and other parts of my body. And if you want to invest time, and I suppose the time to have done it would have been on that new moon in Taurus, which is right around where I started my chiropractic stuff. But this is a really good time for you to like get into the body and build it up and take stock of it and see where you are with your body and your diet and all those things that are connected to Taurus. The other thing that Taurus is connected to is what? It's connected to the throat. So it's about what we say to people and how we say what we say to people. So it's a good time to clear your throat. Most people, cannot access their throat. They're blocked. They talk to people, and it's very difficult for them to kind of just blow it out and get those blocks out of there. It's a good time to do it. And one of the great exercises for doing that is singing or chanting or toning, and I totally recommend that. Since we're here in Taurus, just let it out. Get in your shower in the morning and sing like a Tibetan and chant and pray and do any kind of stuff to just open up your throat chakra. So we're going to be coming into a full moon here in a couple days, and that's going to be in Scorpio, sort of a sun-moon opposition, and that's a very powerful opposition. We're dealing with fixed energies. It's a very powerful, primal, sexual opposition. So there's a lot of chi, a lot of planetary chi in the air. You know, it's like nature is finding itself and doing everything in its power to replicate itself. Except with the human species at times, because we know that here in the United States, birth rates for certain generational aspects are down, down, down. And that has to do with primarily the millennials. So here we have, on this full moon coming up in Scorpio, it'll be conjuncting the millennials. Pluto, the phases, goes through the phases of the Scorpio moon during this time, and it'll be very interesting. You know, just to see how or what comes up from the millennial tip. And we know that Jared Kushner and Kim Jong-un are both millennials, and the Antifa movement tends to be millennial, although it seems to be steered by a lot of college professors. That'll be interesting to see what happens on the full moon and the better. Run, 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 run away. Psycho Killer. By the way, great documentary on Netflix if you like hip-hop or are interested in hip-hop, The Evolution of Hip-Hop. Highly recommended. I'm going to do a chart about the first night that hip-hop broke. I'm going to do a chart for that. It was on August 11th. Of course, hip-hop is going to be a Leo art form. Toasting and boasting. Okay, we got Moon in Libra. Lovely Moon in Libra. I love the Moon in Libra. I have a Moon in Libra. Of course I'm going to love it. You're going to start the week off with the Moon in Libra. How about that? It's harmonious. It's peaceful. We got co-rulers of Venus here with the Sun and the Moon. We've got the visceral and we have the sensual, right? The sensuous and the sensual. Which one is which? Taurus is sensual. And I think Libra is sensuous. One is of the senses and then the other is of the mind. So we have Moon in Libra, and you can be kind and caring, and you can see other people's emotional points of view with the Moon in Libra, and it's not bad at all. It's actually a really, really pleasant way to start the week. So we're not going into chaos on Monday. Not going into chaos. We've got Mercury at 25 Aries. Finally had moved direct last week. Man, I was over that Mercury retrograde. Yikes! I had a lot of redos during that Mercury retrograde. Let's put it that way. So it's getting ready to move to Taurus, and that's great. You know, it's more throat stuff. It's more opportunities for us to clear the pipes and to allow ourselves. And that'll be happening in about 5 days, and it's going to allow us to 5 days starting on Monday. So we got by Saturday, Mercury moves into Taurus again because that's where it went retrograde. I think it was 5. 13. It's around 13. Anyway, but the Mercury in Taurus will be great. Because if we're really trying to articulate what we're feeling, clearly, I mean, Mercury in Aries is going to do that. People are going to just tell you what they think. And right now it's conjunct Uranus. So be prepared. As you enter the world, you'll have the placidity of that Libra moon. You'll have the solidity of the Taurus sun. And then you'll have the AK-47 of Mercury in Aries and Uranus in Aries. And all of a sudden somebody tells you something. You go, what? What? What do you mean? And then there's that moon, balances everything out. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, you know? Yeah, it shocked me, but ... That's the energy. That's how we start the week off. And this is a little bit tricky from a war perspective. It's not great. It's not a great war aspect, unless, of course, you want to start one. In which case, it's fantastic. Fantastic. Starting a war on a Monday with Mercury in Aries and Uranus in Aries, go to it. Get it on. Venus is in Aries too, so there's a lot of edgy, angry energy kind of in the air. And the United States is still posturing and puffing and maybe bluffing over North Korea. And of course, they want North Korea out because North Korea's got a relationship. We talked about this many times with Iran. They supply Iran with technology and other goodies. They don't belong to the Rothschild banking system, just like Iran doesn't. And all those people are considered to be, or those countries are considered to be, non-compliant with the New World Order. So what do you want to do? You've got to flip them and get them into the New World Order. And they're using our technology and our young women and men and all our tax dollars in order to fuel this transition to flip these countries. And look, Russia's on the list too. Now Russia is in. They're part of the World Bank, and they're part of the IMF. They're in, but they are not in according to this whole program and dictum of diversity. I saw a picture of Barbara Specter Lerner this morning. I wanted to reach through my computer screen and choke her, and I don't have these feelings very often. But this morning I did. If you don't know who she is, she was the one that announced about 1.5 years ago, and I wrote about this on my website. I talked about it on my show. I was like out in front of this stuff before a lot of people were hip to who she was. Just go to my website, look it up. She basically said to the world, Europe has got to get used to diversity, and they've got to get used to it fast, and we're going to be one of the leading proponents. When she said we, she was basically saying, and I'm not misquoting her here, okay? These are her words, not mine. She said, we the Jewish people are going to be leading them, and they're not going to like it or us. She said that. She's an American who has dual citizenship, and she said it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. Came right out of her mouth. If I could play it right now, I would. And so what happened? They let the floodgates open because of these bullshit wars that are happening in the Middle East and North Africa. And this is going to continue. It's going to go on and on and on and on and on because they want to reshape the world. They want to reshape the demographics, they want to reshape the religion, and they want a clean sweep of history. So in order to get a clean sweep of history, what do? You mess with borders, you mess with boundaries, you move people here, you move people there, and so you're moving people off their land, which they have a tradition with. They have their own myths, their own legends, their own stories, their own families, even though they probably like them been blown to shit anyway. You move them off that, and now you're moving them into a new place. Oh boy. And then you have the people that are in the new place, and it's like, okay, well, hey, we're supposed to all get along, lovey-dovey-dovey, kumbaya, until all of a sudden things get weird, and people begin to realize that their way of life has been altered considerably. And now it's like, well, our lives have been altered considerably. Now we've got to make changes for these people. Well, their lives have been altered considerably. Yeah, but we didn't do that. We didn't do that. What kind of sucks? Here's what kind of sucks. Is that these people, unfortunately, a lot of it's really unfortunate shit. I'm being straight up. But where are they coming from? They're not coming from really nice places. It'd be kind of cool if we say, hey, look, let's do a deal, man. We'll take 1,500 and take 1,500 of our people who don't like it here and get them over there. Maybe they'd really like it over there. Let them do something. Give them some money and see what happens. But unfortunately, it doesn't. Today, this morning, I wanted to stick my neck and I wanted to do a squeeze. A little love squeeze. I didn't want to asphyxiate her. You know what I mean? But maybe that's the Mercury-Uranus conjunction. Just a love squeeze. About a tweak. Tweaking her cheek really hard. It's not fun. It's not fun. And we're seeing what's happening. And people are having to deal with it in ways that they've never bargained for. And the whole idea, now remember, the whole idea here is to wipe out history, to wipe out religion, to wipe out borders, and to completely remake the world. And until that happens, chaos will ensue. Now, while this is going on, in this country, they're eradicating things like the Rose Parade in Portland and these statues in New Orleans, whether you agree with them or not. And these guys who do the show down in New Orleans, who I always go to bat for, WGSO, Battle of NOLA Radio, they come up with a great point. Let's say it's like, well, okay. And by the way, taking down statues is not a new thing. You know, after Stalin died, they took his statue down. How about that? Stuff happens. But what happens is that, let's say they eradicate all the statues and they put up a bunch of new statues. Well, what happens after that regime falls? Well, those statues will be taken down after that. I mean, this is just what happens. And when you take the statues down, then you begin to eradicate history in the country itself. Mars is in Gemini right now at 11 degrees, so we're dealing with duality. And it's coming up, I think this weekend is where it hits McMaster's, H.R. McMaster's Mars. And the reviews from Mr. McMaster's have not been great. You know, he's the hothead in the White House, the zero degree Leo, head of the National Security Council, the NSC, Trump's big dog in the White House, and he's got his Mars return, and that Mars is slowly creeping up. You got the 17th, 10 days from now, it hits Trump's sun, and a few days from now it hits Trump's, I think it's on the 17th it hits his Uranus. It's going to be a very interesting time. It's on the 17th. You know, but Mars in Gemini is interesting. It's kind of, you know, skitsy and energetic and restless. It's a very, very restless Mars. Luckily, it's in trine with the Moon. What do we got here? Ooh. Tomorrow goes into square with Neptune. Be careful when you drive. Especially for those of you who are in wet weather. With fog or rain, any kind of inclement conditions, you got to be super careful if you are driving tomorrow with that Mars-Neptune square. Okay? From me to you. Jupiter's in Libra at 14 degrees, so we're going to have a Jupiter, Sun, and Moon conjunction, which we talked about with Macron's chart. And that already happened. That happened, earlier in the day. That's what sealed the election for him. Jupiter in Libra, conjunct Moon in Libra, conjunct his Pluto in Libra, conjunct his true node in Libra. That's a lot of Libra. It's a lot of fortuitous expansion. Saturn is at 26 Sagittarius and moving backwards. It finally moved off of the galactic center. It was on there for a long time. It was like getting our attention from the truth perspective. Am I right? So tomorrow we're going to have a Mercury-Saturn trine, and that could actually be pretty good. It might even counteract the Mercury conjunction with Uranus, so you can actually be looking for a breakthrough and lay down the track, if you know what I'm saying, right? So you can punch through something with that Mercury-Uranus conjunction, and Saturn comes in, even though it's retrograde, Saturn comes in and says, how are you going to make this last? So we're dealing with something new, but also the production and the projection of longevity. It should be a really good aspect. Even if it is retrograde, I don't care. It's going to be in that zone, in that trine with Uranus and Mercury. And then, of course, as Venus moves forward, you'll get into that trine with Saturn as well. And that could actually bode pretty well for relationships, especially new relationships. They can settle. Let's see, we talked about Uranus at 25, Aries, and the conjunction with Mercury. Let's see, there's our friend Neptune, 13 degrees. Yeah, and we talked about the Mars in Gemini. By the way, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy on Friday night. It's an interesting movie. Went there late with my kid. I think I'll do something on the website about it. There's some interesting themes in the movie. One of the themes that's in the movie is child trafficking. I don't want to give too much of it away because there are some of you who will see it. I don't want to spoil it for you. But it is a theme in the movie, child trafficking. Now, Kurt Russell is in the movie. He plays Ego, a celestial. And he is the father of Star-Lord. So Star-Lord meets his father. And if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy, you know that he was roaming the galaxy looking for his dad. Well, his dad catches up with him. So it's a father and son deal, right? Which is, it's very Hemingway-esque. Speaking of Hemingway, new book on Hemingway that details that he was more than likely a communist spy. I'm going to try to get the writer of the book to do an interview with me. It's very fascinating since I have a strange connection with Hemingway. But anyway, going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a theme of child abduction. You'll see, if you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. And of course, there's this kind of, unrequited love that's going on between Star-Lord, played by, I forget the guy's name, Chris. I forget his name. Anyway, Star-Lord, and then there's Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana. And Star-Lord is in love with Zoe Saldana. Gamora, who has green skin. He's in love with a green-skinned woman. And her character, quite frankly, is a bitch. She's a bitch. She's always, turning on him and getting on him, and he's always coming back for more. Boy. I don't know. Aren't there other women in the galaxy that are nicer? Sweeter? Kinder? Come on, Star-Lord. You got your pick of all these women in the galaxy, and you have chosen a green-skinned feminist from another planet. How about that? Travel halfway across the galaxy, and that's your mate. Good luck, brother. Let's see. Pluto's in Capricorn at 19 degrees. Going retrograde. And it only goes up to 19 this year. It gets into 20 next year. I think by the end of the year it might get close to 20. Yeah, so, Capricorn in the final 10 degrees. Now, these final 10 degrees are going to last for another 7 years. So don't get too excited. And then we've got to go through a lot of stuff. We've got to go through the Pluto return of Capricorn. We've got to go through the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And that's going to happen in 2020. That's going to be a big one. I think the world changes. And then you've got the Pluto return to the United States. And say, hold on. Tighten those belts. Let's see. Perhaps with the retrograde, we might get more insight into what's going on behind the scenes with our corporocratic friends. By this time now, with everybody and their brother and sister doing a truther YouTube channel or a radio show, you would think that people would be getting the message that basically the entire world is corrupt and you can't trust anyone in office. You'd think they'd be getting that. I think it's coming. So this Pluto retrograde, here's the big challenge. Because I think there's a lot of people that are pissed off. I think there's a lot of people that want something drastically different than what we're being fed, spoon-fed. And all these bullshit elections. Now, the Trump election was interesting. And by the way, Sholin Adelson is pissed at Trump because Trump has said that he's not moving the consulate from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So Adelson's a little pissed off at him. Trump is going to do that. He'll piss people off every now and then. But I think we're hitting this like massive sort of tidal wave of critical mass. It's coming. And I think it's unfortunate, but we've got these Antifa, anarchists who were basically set up by George Soros and being deployed in places like New Orleans or Berkeley or whatever. And I would love to see this country really pull together and come together. And we just all turn our backs together on these clowns who are guiding and directing our attention and our signal. Just create something different. And it could happen. But we're too fractured right now. It's not going to happen tomorrow or this week. We'll have to deal with the fracture, and that could get ugly. We've got the true node at 0 Virgo. There it is, getting ready to go into Leo. It's getting ready to hit Trump's ascendant. If you think Trump has been hard to handle, wait till the true node hits his ascendant. Look out. It's kind of there now, but when it kicks into Leo, it is all about him. Him. And it's going to be that way for roughly from his birthday on for probably about 2 months. So from Trump's birthday on, 2 months. It'll be a very interesting period of time. He might be really strong and bold during that time. Who knows? But he's going to, at some point, it won't be this year. But next year, that Trump's going to go to 10 degrees, and Mr. Jared Kushner is going to have his nodal return. It's going to happen right on Trump's Pluto. That's going to be a very interesting time. And I would not be surprised if Kushner makes a huge power play on his nodal return. Chiron at 27, Pisces, goes into Aries next year. A lot of people with Chiron and Aries. Wounded warriors, that's what you all are. Wounded warriors. And my heart goes out to the men and women with Chiron and Aries. For women, boy, it's a tough Chiron. And for men as well, because men have to step up and be men with the Chiron and Aries. And sometimes women have to step up and be men with the Chiron and Aries. And it is not fun. They're both looking at the wound that they have to deal with around men and fathers and patriarchy. And it's both sexes, not just one. It's going to be an interesting time. Hopefully get a lot of healing done. Speaking of healing, Charles Barkley is doing a big special on race in America. I like Barkley. I think he's really interesting. It's all about race and discussion and talking about it. We've been talking about it for a while. I guess there's more that needs to be said. All right, let's get into some charts. Some more charts here, some interesting stuff. I'm going to put up a face, and then I'm going to do his chart. Let's get how this works. Here we go. Here we go. Let's do a key. Here we go. Do you know this guy? No, it's not the ruler of Ingstock. It's not Big Brother. It's Dave Gahan, the singer from Depeche Mode. His birthday. Today, though. Anyway, I wanted to look at his chart because it is said that Taurus is one of the best signs for being a singer. And Gahan is a pretty good singer. He's got that deep voice. He's got the gothic thing going on. He's got a drug problem. Perfect for rock. He's lucky to be alive, by the way, this guy. Let's check out his chart. Here's his chart. Right there. Alright, so of course he's going to be known for his voice. He has a Taurus rising, and he has Sun in Taurus. What does that make him? It makes him a double Taurus. Correct? Correct. Good. Okay, so he's got the Taurus pedigree. Look down here in the second house. He's got Mercury in the second house. What is the ruler of the second house? Taurus. So he's got Mercury in Gemini, which is great, conjunct Venus in Gemini. And that's showing up like having, to some extent, Mercury in Taurus. So he's getting the benefit of both the Sun and Mercury. And look, he's got a square with Jupiter. It's overdoing it. This guy's an overdoer, right? Pleasure. He's a pleasure hound, and he overdid a lot of it. But you know what? He also has endurance because of that Mercury trying to Saturn, Venus trying to Saturn. There were people that stood behind him. I don't know, outside of the fact that I know he OD'd a couple of times and went into a coma and nearly died, and had a reputation on the concert scene that was completely wild. I don't know a lot about him, but I would say here that he had people that stood by him with the Venus-Saturn trine. So if there's any Depeche Moders out there who have any insight into Dave Gahan's relationships, I can tell you right now that even if he was a tremendous fuck-up, that there were people that were there ready for him. And that Mercury-Venus, Mercury-Saturn trine is also really good for longevity with the voice. So he could sing for a long time. I don't know what Depeche Mode is doing now. They're all filthy rich. Here we have his drug problem right here. Sun-Neptune opposition. And Neptune in the 7th house. Now, the 11th house Saturn is friends. Right? These are associates. Here's where he gets into trouble. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad Neptune. He's got a very strong connection with the moon in Cancer. That's a first quarter moon, right? And it's in trine with Neptune. So there's a lot of romanticism with that moon. I mean, the guy's, you know, fairly hypnotic, and, you know, he's got some He's got some charisma with that Moon-Neptune trine, but his intimate relationships can be very, very painful. Very, very painful. And probably some deception. Neptune can also be wonderful, and it can be very blissful, and it can be very transcendental, but it could also be very tragic. And I would say he would have a little bit of both. He's got that Jupiter trine to Neptune. Again, that's more. And he's got, so his Neptune's got some decent aspects to it, but then he's got the square to Saturn in the opposition to the Sun. 2 T-squares going on here, and he gets his most stress in relationship, and his relationships would have impacted him significantly, and he would have had to deal with some very strong restraint, both with himself, especially with that Sun square to Saturn. He'd have to learn self-discipline and get through things. Very interesting chart. So he's going to have, let's see, Pluto is right there on his midheaven, and transiting Saturn gets there in 2 years. And Saturn's going through his 8th house, a very interesting time for him. You know, this is a time of shedding and cleansing when Saturn goes through the 8th house. So he'd be shedding and cleansing relationships and triviality and all those things that go along at times with the sign of Gemini. Although he's a little bit deeper here. There's also obsession, intensity with that Venus-Pluto square. It's getting into somebody in a way that can be very powerful, intense, and passionate, but also at times dark and heavy, deadly, unhealthy. A lot of challenges. Dave, so this is the guy that's got the Rockstar Challenge chart. I'm telling you, Mars is in Aries in the 12th house. Now, I've never heard anything about his temper, but clearly, with the square to the moon, he could have one. If he was not in the right mood, boy, watch out. This guy could explode. But he also has some sensuality here with the Mars-Venus sextile, of course. And then the Mars-Saturn. Saturn's his friend in this chart. You know, Saturn shapes him up with the Saturn-Sun square. It makes him work harder. I think his father probably had high expectations for him. And then the square with Neptune is, you know, ultimately getting his life together. He'll be in his Saturn return in 6 years. It's interesting. He's younger than me. And he came out right around, I remember the first Depeche Mode record when I was, I think, 20. Speak and Spell, great record. Let's see. Oh, and Sun-Uranus square, so he's rebellious. So a lot of square action here. And then there's a true node in Leo down in the 5th house. I think he likes himself with that true node in the 5th. Good with kids. I hope he got married, and I hope he had children, because it's good to have true node in the 5th house and have kids, especially with Leo. Am I right? Now, they were very popular. When did they really hit their stride in a big way? I think it was right around, what, 87, 88. And at that time, Pluto was, where it was in Scorpio, right? It was in Scorpio. So he had to go through his 7th house. And he was going through that Pluto-Sun opposition. Interesting. A lot of temptation. Huge, huge temptation. Big time. Yeah. So that's Dave Gahan's chart. Depeche Mode. Thanks, Dave, for coming onto the decks here, brother. Nice of you to join our show. Ooh, that was his face. What is this? Okay. I think this is it. Let's see what happens here. Image 10. Let's do this. There we go. Alright. Shall we bring up another chart? Why don't we? Let me just check in with what's happening in the chat room, if there's anything going on in there. Let's see what we got. Chatting on. Hey, hi Amanda Faith. Hi Sally. I miss. Just curious. Have you covered Ivanka Trump's chart before? Yes, I have. Hi Christopher. Nice to see you. Emmanuel Macron or reverse genders. I believe that. I think there's a huge amount of reverse genders going on, and Marine Le Pen is a man. She sure looks like it. She absolutely looks like it. And I've seen some of the stuff that Mr. E does on YouTube. That guy's funny, man. He's a tranny. Look, it's a tranny. He did this thing with Kaylee Clark and Taylor Swift. And Kaylee Clark is Taylor Swift's best friend, and she's involved with Jordan Kushner. And this Kaylee Clark is a man. Total man. Yeah, great Taurus singers. We had Willie Day last weekend. Yep, Bono, Byrne. Byrne and Eno are born, I think, a day apart. And they've been linked together in so many musical projects. Cher, Enya, Barbra Streisand, that's right. Yeah, Iggy Pop. Nobody would ever call Iggy Pop a great singer. He got a little of that later on, right? Like when he was young, he just yelled. But he was so amazing to watch. He's going to retire one of these days, soon, very soon. Yeah, I've done Ivanka's Trump's chart. I need to do more of it though. I need to spend a little more time with the First Lady of the White House. Let's do another chart. This one I think was, this is inspired. It is inspired by our time here with the sign of Taurus, and one particular Taurus coming up, and a guy that I actually really like, even though he's completely messed up. He's totally messed up. Let me see if I can grab it here. Find the good stuff. All right, here we go. I'm going to throw the picture up, and then we're going to throw the chart up, and you'll see why I'm doing this. Okay, because it's kind of an interesting thing here. Hold on. Yeah, Marine Le Pen totally looks like a man. I mean, how can you not sell that? Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's see, where is it? What's the bigger controversy? Flat Earth or flat chests? That's what I want to know. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Sorry about the little bump there. What do we have here? Kim Jong-un and Dennis Rodman. Let's just look at this picture for a minute. Now, this is when Rodman went, it was about 2 years ago. He flew over there with some American players because Kim Jong-un loves basketball, and he loved Dennis Rodman. Now look at these two cats. Now, Rodman's a Taurus. I think he's born on the 13th of May, so 6 days from now. Now, what is this little drink that Kim Jong-un is drinking? Wouldn't you want to know what that is? Is that like tea, or is that like a cocktail, or some kind of weird like Korean ginseng potency drink? And then look at this brother in the back. I mean, it's like, what is he doing? I mean, he's either part of the team or he's one of Rodman's buds, but he just looks like so out of place. This image. And they took a lot of photos of the two of them together. And what's really interesting is that I think Dennis Rodman was on The Apprentice, if I'm not mistaken. And he came out, he was a big Trump supporter. And it said, like, a month ago, send Dennis Rodman to North Korea as a peace ambassador. Get him over there, man. Let's have some peace between these two countries. So anyway, it's like, well, why are they connected? So I did their charts together. Let's look at this. I was trying to find a connection. And this is what I got. Okay. So, Kim Jong-un, we don't know what time he's born. I chose 6 a.m., which could be an interesting time because he's got all this activity. He's on the inner ring, by the way. It's all in Sagittarius, and he's got that sun in Capricorn. It's like, it's Sagittarius / Capricorn. Venus-Uranus conjunction. It's just a little skitsy, right? Venus-Uranus conjunction. He likes unusual people, too. That's another thing about Venus. So he's eccentric. Kim Jong-un is eccentric, and he likes interesting and unusual people. Bottom line, end of story, right? So look what we have here. Let's go down into Rodman's chart, which is on the outside. And there's his Venus in Aries, and it's in trine right there with Kim Jong-un's Venus. Okay, so we can see that they've got a Venusian connection. Clearly, Rodman is unusual. They did not invite Kobe Bryant over. He did not invite Steph Curry over. This is Dennis Rodman. Here's your Venus-Uranus conjunction. Look at him. Okay. Here's what I thought was quite interesting in a lot of ways. Kim Jong-un's sun is right on Dennis Rodman's ascendant. So again, we don't know his time, but we know that no matter what the time, well, we do know Dennis Rodman's time, and he's a Capricorn rising, and he has Saturn, Jupiter in the first house. Look, his sun is right on his ascendant. So these guys have a connection, man. These are two brothers from another mother. This is unusual. It's a very unusual relationship. Like, in a lot of ways, Kim Jong-un is living through Dennis Rodman's ascendant, his persona. It's very interesting. Then you have the Venus-Venus trine and the Venus-Uranus conjunction with the unusual relationship. And there's Rodman's Mars over there in Leo, and it's coming down. You got the trine to Venus. So there's these guys have chemistry. But here's where I thought it was really interesting. Aside from all that, and all that other stuff is really interesting too, don't get me wrong. But they both have this connection with Chiron. So Kim Jong-un's Chiron is right on Rodman's sun. And Rodman's Chiron is right on Kim Jong-un's moon. So there's this, they get each other. There's like this underlying simpatico, this psychic symbiosis. The wounding and there's something here with these guys. Okay, now Rodman's true node is conjunct as Pluto, right up there at the top of the chart, 9th house. So there's a 9th house connection for Rodman. He's going to go. I'm sorry, it's 8th house. I apologize. That's even more intense in some ways. Now Kim Jong-un's Mars Pluto is in Rodman's 9th house. So he's traveling, he's going to another part of the world, and he's meeting up with this very powerful guy. And hey, look, Mars-Pluto conjunctions are very powerful. Don't underestimate this guy, Kim Jong-un. Do not underestimate him. And I know that Trump said he's a smart cookie. He's very smart. He's very, very smart. He's got his Mercury conjunct Jupiter, right? And he's got a Mercury conjunction to Neptune, so he's very empathic. Might even be a bit psychic. But man, Mars-Pluto conjunction. Interesting. Now, he might be a bit obsessed with Dennis Rodman. Look at that. He might even be attracted to him with that Mars-Pluto conjunction opposite Rodman's moon. Interesting. Interesting stuff. But I really think it's this Moon Chiron, Sun Chiron piece. Like on some level, right? They're both wounded. And there's some level of acceptance. It's very interesting stuff. I think we got to send Rodman over there. He's got a mission. He's got a mission. And Rodman's going to have Saturn go into his 12th house and it's going to conjunct, right? Transiting Saturn's going to, it's already there, kind of conjuncting his Jupiter. So it's right here, behind the scenes. Dennis Rodman could save the world. I'm banking on it. Okay, I've got a couple more charts here tonight that I want to share with you. Hope you're enjoying the ones that I am sharing with you from an astrological perspective. And hopefully you're learning a thing here or there and being entertained when you do it. I'm going to do a couple more and then we'll give it a rest for the night. Here we go. Let's see what we got. Okay, some of you may not remember this guy. Some of you might. His name is Ricky Nelson. Look at that face. That was America 60 years ago. His father was Ozzie Nelson, and his mother was Harriet Nelson. And Ozzie was, I think he was a band leader, and Harriet Nelson was a singer, so it was a musical family. And they had a TV show, Ozzie and Harriet. Of course, their children were part of the show, and it was one of the first examples on American TV of whoring out your kids. Now, Ozzie, I don't know much about Ozzie Nelson, but you know, these people in Hollywood, even back then, it was not a nice place. And it's gotten even worse. Anyway, Ricky Nelson was signed to a 20-year contract by his father to Decca Records. How would you like to have that? Your father signs you for a 20-year deal and you can't get out of it. It's a little bit much. Anyway, Ricky Nelson died. He died in 1985. And he had fathered two children, the twins. I think Gunnar and Matthew, and they had that band Nelson. And he was married to Mark Harmon's sister, if I'm not mistaken. So what I wanted to do here is I wanted to look at when Ricky Nelson died. And I wanted to look at if we could establish what might have happened during his death. If we could actually see if there were aspects that contributed to his death. And I know it sounds morbid, but it was, for me, kind of an interesting experience. So let's check this out. Bring it up here. 61G 134. Let's see. It's this one. Okay, here we go. So this is Ricky Nelson's birth chart and the chart for when he died. So Ricky is in the center. Okay, he's the center ring. And the crash is on the outer ring. Now, he died in a place called DeKalb, Texas at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, December 31st. He was doing about 200 dates a year. And he was a cocaine addict at that time of his life. Excuse me, lost his kids. You ever try and do 200 music dates in a year? It's almost freaking impossible. Like 200 days out of the year, you're traveling somewhere. You're sleeping in a strange bed. You have to hit every audience like they're the most important audience in the world every single night. Do you think anybody can do that under normal conditions? Now, I'm sure there's some other things going on there with the old man, probably. But just from a sheer survival perspective, being able to stay up and do things, make a living, of course, they're stimulants and they're addictive. So let's check this out. At the top of the chart, we have Uranus-Sun conjunction. So he was rebellious. But the people really saw his moon instead, his moon in Gemini, instead of the rebellious Sun-Uranus conjunction. A lot of ninth house material, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury. Again, we're talking Taurus here, loaded. But look, let's go to the other side of the chart. What do we have? Down here, Pluto, transiting Mars, conjunction in Scorpio. Look at that. (1985). Yep, here it is. Opposing Mercury and Saturn. Boom. Pluto, Mars, conjunction, opposing Saturn and Mercury. Mercury's travel. Remember that ninth house. They're flying. There's the true node in Taurus. So where's the south node? Go all the way back down here, Scorpio. And we know Scorpio is the planet of death and sex and to some extent rebirth. We have a moon square going on. The moon at that time was just into Virgo. So we're talking a quarter moon. And it's squaring Ricky Nelson's moon in Gemini. So we have a moon square. And then we have the Mercury-Uranus square over there to Neptune, and Mercury-Uranus opposition to, guess what? Mars and Venus in the chart. So we have the outer planets are wreaking havoc on this guy's chart. But to me, it's this Pluto-Mars conjunction with the south node down here opposing his Mercury-Saturn up in the ninth house of travel. And look, can astrology make a case for something like this? I think so. And if you understand astrology, now if you were an astrologer, would you say, "Hey, Ricky, don't fly. I'm looking at your chart. You better watch it, buddy, when you travel, especially by plane." I think some astrologers could look at that and make that connection before the fact. I think they could do it. And look at, it's not just, clearly, I think it's this Plutonian South Node stuff right here, opposing Mercury, Saturn, ninth house travel. Boom. But also the moon squares, and then the opposition from Neptune to Venus, right? And the opposition from Uranus to Mars. This is an explosive chart. Absolutely explosive. It's not a lot of relief. Got a Pluto-Saturn trine. Very intense. Very, very intense. Ricky Nelson died at the age of 45. 45 years old. Blows my mind. I'm 11 years older than that guy when he died. Of course, he was kind of run out of the music game, and he wrote that song "Garden Party," which was his biggest hit, and it was about how he became irrelevant. Very painful song. Anyway, that's Ricky Nelson there. Thought I'd share that with you. Okay, so tonight we're going to have one more chart, and this is a kind of a sentimental favorite of mine. This is somebody that I spent a lot of time with when I was young, maybe too much time. The guy on the left, that's John Lennon. That's not the guy I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guy on the right. That's Tom Snyder. And when I was young, I used to have a black and white TV in my room that had a timer attached to it. And I'd turn that timer on. I would watch TV at 10 o'clock at night. I'd miss my sleep cycle. Watch the news. And then I watched Johnny Carson. I was around 13 years old, 14 years old this time, 15. This went on basically from 14 till about 16 years old, 17 years old. And then after Carson was done, there was this guy, Tom Snyder, and The Tomorrow Show. And The Tomorrow Show was interesting because it didn't have the same, and I love The Tonight Show, The Tonight Show is snap, crackle, and pop. It was entertainment, it was Hollywood. It was old school and a little bit of new school. Johnny broke comics, but he also had the old school people on there and the inside jokes and all that stuff, and I loved it. I loved this stupid shtick is Karnak and all the other stuff. Loved it. And then Tom Snyder would reel me in and take me into this place where his guests were different. I remember one time he had the guys from Eckankar on his show, and they were talking about astral travel and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, man, I want to join Eckankar. It sounds like a cool religion. Anyway, and I thought to myself, well, how does Tom Snyder, how does his chart look, number one? Because I've never seen it before. Number two, how could his chart have affected me? And I've got some interesting ideas around this. Let me share them with you. No, cancel. There we go. Give me 1 second, kids. Okay. Let's see. Let's see the last one. Right, yeah, it's this one. Let's try this one. Yep. Here's Tom Snyder's chart. Well, first of all, he has an Aquarian midheaven, which would account for some of his unusual guests. One of my favorite interviews he did was with Ace Frehley. He had all the members of KISS on his show in full makeup. And he did this interview with Ace Frehley, and Ace Frehley was wasted out of his skull. And Tom Snyder was so great with him. He was totally great with him. And Frehley was hilarious. And then he did another interview one time with Paul Weller of The Jam and Joan Jett from Joan Jett of the Blackhearts. So he was kind of breaking punk rock. Again, that was a very, kind of Aquarian, midheaven kind of thing. And these are just a few guests that I remember off the top of my head. And one time he had this guy, William Shockley, who was from Stanford as a professor. And he was a big-time professor. And he was having a race debate with a black American professor, and he was basically making a case for white superiority genetically. And I'm like, wow, this is like crazy, that they would have this debate, 1 o'clock in the morning, on, and I wasn't really chiming in on the debate. I mean, I thought it was kind of silly, to be honest with you, but the actual having this debate on TV at that time was kind of mind-blowing. But then again, that goes into that Aquarian midheaven. So I thought, well, what makes Tom Snyder so special in his own way? Well, look where his Mercury is. It's right on the ascendant. He was very engaging. He smoked, by the way, when he was on TV. He was very engaging. Mercury on the ascendant. So he was able to converse with just about anybody. But I think it's his 12th house. I think it's his 12th house because if you're up at like 1 o'clock in the morning, you're in somebody's 12th house. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This is like you're having an experience that a lot of other people aren't having at that time. to me, it's a very 12th house kind of deal. So, in order to understand Tom Snyder, first of all, you had to go into the ascendant, and there's the conversation, there's the connection, and then he was awkward at times. Like he was a bit awkward. He was a bit too cool, or it was kind of funny. He was almost like a precursor for Anchorman with what's his name? Sorry, it's late. Will Ferrell. And then, but it's all of these Uranian planets, the Taurus planets, the Venus-Uranus conjunction in the 12th house, the Sun in the 12th house. Tom Snyder took us into the 12th house. He took me into the 12th house. And I got to experience a lot of kind of unique characters, not just with the Aquarian midheaven, but with that Venus-Uranus conjunction in the 12th at about 1:30 in the morning. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, Tom Snyder, wherever you are. Rest in peace. And you're sorely missed. These clowns on television today can't hold a candle to you. I mean it. All right, that's our last. Oh yeah, look at the Jupiter and Sagittarius in the 7th house. I also really like that. It's like expanding through connecting with another. Yeah, and there's some challenges, whatever, but T-squared. He's got an Aquarian moon. Up, 29 degrees Capricorn. Not Aquarian. Close, though. Close. All right, let's shut this down. Tom Snyder. All right. Well, there we go. That gave us a little bit of astrology. Am I right? Am I right for tonight? Did you get enough? Hey, check it out. We've got 24 hours left. I said this on my Friday show. I'm going to be raising my rates, by the way. So before I do, I'm going to give you a chance to get a reading at a reduced rate. All you got to do is email me, and I'm taking $25 off of a reading. And a couple people have already availed themselves of that. And I have my astrological course, which is a 16-hour course with a bunch of goodies in there, lectures and labs, and I'm taking $95 off of that. One person has already availed himself of that as well. So by tomorrow night, the offer goes away, so you've got 24 hours between now and tomorrow night for Libran, Moon and Libran kind of thing. Just wanted to put that out there. And they'll be back tomorrow. For the 15 Minutes of Flame segment. We'll do that all week. All right, brothers and sisters, from my heart to yours, I love you all. This is a great opportunity for me to reach out, no matter how few of you or how many of you are listening on the other end. It's always a great gift and a great pleasure to share my time with yours. And sweet dreams, and enjoy the Libra moon. And I will see you all tomorrow at 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix. Have a good night.